Have you ever wanted to display a combination of your inputs so that they can all be seen at once? Often this is called a multi-view, and in vMix 28 and onwards, you can set up to 2 different multi-views for your production. Not only that, but you can also interact with the multi-view by clicking on it. Let me show you how. Hi, I'm Heath from vMix. If you're new to vMix, make sure you watch some of our introductory videos to understand how it works, as this video is a little more advanced. Also, make sure you use our free 60-day trial of vMix Pro because the Pro Edition offers all the features of vMix for you to try without any limits or watermarks. Speaking of editions, while most of the MultiView features we'll be looking at today are available in all editions, some of them will be more beneficial in vMix 4K, Pro, and Max because they support more outputs to screens and also support the Telestator. To get started, I have a production here with a bunch of cameras, videos, and a mix input. To set up a multi-view, I just need to head up to Settings, click on Outputs NDI SRT, and then head down to the bottom to Multi-View Layout. Here I've got my 2 multi-views and some templates. I'm going to leave these both as default, and we're going to have a look at what this looks like. In order to see it, I need to send it to either one of my full screens or one of my 4 outputs. I'm going to go with my first full screen here, and I just go to the drop-down list and select Multi-View. This will allow me to see it on my full screen. I'll click on OK, and now here I am in my multi-view on another display. So you can see here that we've got a layout with a preview and output, and then below that, 8 of the first inputs. This is fully customizable, but I'll just show you some of the features of this multi-view first. Firstly, you can see that I'm in output and you can see my audio bars. You can also see that there's color banners that indicate whether it's preview or output. And with the individual inputs, you can get the input number and whether there's audio on those. All right, let's go back to settings and customize this. So we'll head up to settings, click on outputs, and then go down to customize layout. From here, we've got some customization options. The first one here is where we want that title banner to be positioned. We can either have it on the top or on the bottom. I'll show you what that looks like now. So there we go. It's simply moved all of our title banners to below. Okay, returning to the menu, we've now got the preview output headings. This simply allows us to change from having the words preview and output written to having the actual input names written. I'll show you what that looks like now. So there we go. Now you can see that my output has changed from the word output to showing the actual input name, as has the preview. Okay, I'm going to return those 2 settings to defaults because I prefer them that way. And we're going to have a look at the preview output mix. In vMix, there is 16 potential mixes. By default, you'll be using mix 1 at all times. That's basically the vMix interface with its output. But if you add mix inputs, you can have secondary and tertiary mixes to have completely separate productions running. I've added a second mix, and that's mix input 2. So I could set it to 2, and then I would be able to see the preview and output of that mix. Now, I won't do that yet. For now, we're going to leave that as default. Next is what audio we want to demonstrate. We can select master or any of the buses. This is particularly handy if we're showing a mix because we might have a completely separate audio for that mix. Next up, we've got show inputs only. I'll explain that in just a moment. And below that, we've got enable click to select input. I will tick this and I'll show you what it does. So we'll go back to the multi-view. And now in the multi-view, I have the ability to click on these. So I'll click on input 2, which is sample camera, and that sends it to preview. I can do the same with my camera or any of the other inputs. That looks a little bit weird with both of them, so I will put this guy back in. All right, now that you understand how that works, we'll go back and look at some of those other customizations. Here we've got all of our inputs in those boxes. I can customize these if I want, and I can show any input that I wish. And if I wanted to, I can also get rid of the preview and output and replace them with inputs too by clicking on the Show Inputs Only. So if I click on this, it will free up those top 2 boxes. It will move all of my inputs up and take up those spaces, and it will free up 2 additional ones, giving us input 9 and 10, as you can see there. Now for this particular multi-view, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because those 2 boxes are probably better used for preview and output. But for another multi-view layout that is just all small boxes, it might be very useful. So why don't we give that a go with our MultiView 2. So I'll click on MultiView 2 and set this to the 16 box and go to Customize Layout. Here I can click on Show Inputs Only, and now I've got my full 16 input set that I can use. I'll click OK, and now I need to send this MultiView 2 somewhere. I'm going to select Output 2 for this. So I'll go to the drop-down list and select MultiView 2. And now I've got a few options. I can either send this out on an external capture card. I could alternatively send it out over NDI by toggling this on, and I could pick it up on another device. Or I could send it to the Telestator. Now the Telestator is a great place to send it because I can pick that up on any device that supports browser, including something like a tablet. So we're going to send it to the Telestator, but before we do, I want to make it interactive. So I'll go back to the Customize Layout. I'll tick Enable Click to select input so that it's interactive. And what I might do as well is change it to Mix 2. So I will actually be controlling Mix 2 of my vMix production. So I'll click 2 and I will click OK. From here, I'll click OK again. And now I need to set up the Telestator. So I'll go back to Settings and I'll go to the Web Controller. And here I can turn on the Telestator, and I need to select which output to send to the Telestator. So I will select Output 2 because that's where our MultiView 2 is. And I'll click on OK. Now there's lots of features of the Telestator, but we're only going to be looking at things that support the MultiView. And so I would urge you, if you're interested in using the Telestator, to watch the training video that we have for that. All right, and now over on our Telestator, you can see that I've got my 16 box here. And if I turn it to drawing mode off, I can now click on it and interact with it just like I showed you earlier. It's going to be a little bit hard to display on this tiny screen for you, but tapping on any of these will send them to preview. That's going to help us get halfway to sort of running a production from this multi-view, but just getting it to preview doesn't get it into the main output. And so we need a way to get it into our Mix 2 output. And that is by using the shortcuts. So we can go down and we can set up one of these 10 customizable shortcuts. Let me show you how to do that real quick. So we'll go back to the settings. We'll go to shortcuts. I'll click on add. And I'm going to set up any old button. I'm going to use the F1 key for this. Click OK. The reason we can use any button is because ultimately we're going to be using the Telestator buttons. Okay, the function we will use as just a fade, and by default it's set to 1 second from preview, which is perfect. That's what we want. We want to be able to tap on the inputs in Telestator, send them to preview, and then tap on the shortcut to send it from preview to output. And most importantly, because we're doing this on Mix 2, we need to assign it to Mix 2. So we'll click Mix 2. We will give it a title, and we have to do that because we are putting it in Telestator, and Telestator requires a title so that it can be displayed on the button. And then we go down to Show in Telestator. Okay, okay, and now it has appeared in the Telestator. So there we go. We've now got a button that allows us to fade. So I can click on any of these, and whatever is in preview will fade to the program output of Mix 2. So I'll click on fade, and there we go. It has now faded that into the output of Mix 2. As you can see here, that is all working really nicely. The last thing that I'm going to show you is one more multi-view layout. So I'm just going to adjust what it looks like in the Telestator by going back to settings, back to outputs, And for MultiView 2, we're going to toggle this to the single input layout, which is a bit of a weird thing for a multi-view considering it's only maybe a uni view. But the reason that this is helpful is that we can customize this to just show one particular input. And in this case, I'm going to show my main camera. I'm going to click on OK, click on OK again. And now I've got my input coming in just as a single input multi-view. Now, the reason that's helpful is I can use it as a confidence monitor. So a completely mobile, completely wireless confidence monitor that allows me to see whether I am in the center of frame and that my audio levels are right. So hopefully you'll find that helpful if that's something that you've been lacking in the past. That is all of the features that we're going to cover today about the MultiView. Hopefully you've found it helpful and you're able to use some of these tips and tricks in your future productions. If you do hit any snags or have any issues while you're trying to work through this stuff, I'd urge you to go to vmix.com where you can find our support documentation. You can also reach out to us from there. And there's links to our YouTube channel where we have over 300 training videos for you to learn everything there is to know about vMix. Thank you very much for joining me on this one, and I will catch you on the next one.